The stars were cold and endless, a black ocean filled with tiny lights, drifting like diamonds in the dark sky. In that endless silence, a broken ship floated near the shadow of a dead planet. Its engines were dead, its lights weak, and its halls empty, except for one voice. Inside the ship sat a woman, not human, but alien. Her skin had a faint silver glow, her eyes large and filled with pain. For 13 long days she had pressed the same button, sending the same signal again and again. "Help me," the signal said, her voice broken, her hope falling apart. Every hour she waited, staring at the silent screen, but no one answered. The galaxy was full of life, she knew. Hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships, yet not a single one came near. She was abandoned, forgotten in the cold of space. Her ship had once been part of a proud fleet, but when the battle went wrong, when her vessel was damaged, her people left her behind. They marked her ship as lost, and they never returned. She remembered their voices, sharp and cruel. "Do not go back. She is tainted. She is finished." Those words burned inside her heart like fire. Food was almost gone. Water, too. The air system worked only half the time, sometimes filling the ship with a strange gas that made her cough and cry. She wrapped a broken blanket around herself, whispering into the darkness, "Please, someone hear me." The dead planet below gave no answer. Its surface was cracked and frozen, no air, no warmth, only stone and shadows. The stars gave no answer either. They only watched as she suffered, silent and cold. On the 13th day, her voice was weak. Her hands shook when she pressed the button again. The signal went out, but she no longer believed. No one is listening, she thought. Her chest hurt, her throat dry, her tears falling slowly. Still, she kept talking to the empty air. She told stories to hers. Elf about her homeworld, about the warm rivers where her people once sang, about the tall trees that glowed at night. She spoke as if someone could hear, even when she knew no one could. At times she closed her eyes and imagined footsteps. She imagined someone opening the door, offering a hand, saying, "I found you." But when she opened her eyes, there was only silence, only the broken metal walls around her. Her body grew weaker, her eyes heavy, but her spirit refused to die. She told herself, "If no one comes, then I will still keep calling, until my last breath. I will not let silence be my end." The ship drifted slowly, moving deeper into the shadow of the planet. Its broken panels cracked further, sparks falling like dying stars inside. The alien woman sat near the console, her silver glowed dim, her lips trembling. Each signal she sent was like a cry thrown into a storm, lost and swallowed. Far away, across the black sea of stars, the signal traveled, weak and broken. It passed through dust clouds, through fields of asteroids, across empty space where no one had walked for ages. It was a voice almost forgotten, almost lost, yet still alive. The galaxy moved on. Traders flew past, soldiers marched, planets turned, and no one cared for the little ship near the dead world. But the signal still spread, like a whisper carried by the wind. Inside the ship, the alien woman's strength was almost gone. She leaned her head against the console, her breathing slow. She thought of her family, faces she would never see again, voices she would never hear. She thought of the stars, bright and cold. She thought of death, waiting for her. And yet, even in that dark hour, she pressed the button one more time, her finger heavy, her arm weak. "Help me," the signal said again. "Please, help me." For 13 days, no one had listened, no one had cared. But as her voice reached out into the endless void, something was changing. Somewhere, far away, in the quiet corner of the galaxy, a human ear would soon hear it. But she did not know that yet. For her, there was only silence. There was only waiting. There was only the hope that maybe, just maybe, someone, somewhere was listening. She closed her eyes, the tears drying on her cheeks. The console beeped weakly, sending out her final call for the night. The stars outside shone, cold and eternal, but among them, fate was moving. The alien woman whispered into the darkness, "Do not let me die alone." Then she fell asleep, her hand still resting on the button, the silent signal still reaching across the stars, searching, waiting. And so, in the great ocean of space, where countless lives lived and died unseen, her lonely voice floated, not knowing it was about to be heard, not knowing her story was only beginning. The signal was weak, broken, and almost lost in the noise of space. Most machines ignored it, most scanners marked it as trash data, just static, but one old listening post orbiting near the edge of human space caught it. Inside the station sat a young man named Daniel. He was a low-ranking technician, forgotten by his commanders. His job was simple and boring, to watch the signals, to sort the noise, to report only if something important came. He spent most of his days drinking cold coffee, staring at blinking lights, and feeling alone. On the 13th night, when the alien woman pressed the button once again, Daniel's console beeped. At first he sighed, expecting nothing. He leaned closer, adjusting the old headset. Static filled his ears. Then a strange sound followed, a soft whisper. He froze. His heart beat faster. He turned the dial slowly, carefully. The whisper grew clearer. It was a voice, broken and faint, saying the same words again and again. "Help me, please. Help me." Daniel pulled off his headset. His hands shook. He checked the logs twice, 3 times. The signal was real. It came from the dire section of a dead planet, a place no one visited, a place marked as empty. He leaned back, thinking. Rules were clear. He was not supposed to follow unknown signals. They could be tricks, traps, or even enemy bait. Command would tell him to delete it, mark it as interference, but his chest felt heavy. He could not ignore the voice. He listened again, closing his eyes. The voice sounded tired, desperate, not like a soldier, not like an enemy, but like someone truly alone. He whispered to himself, "Someone is out there. Someone is waiting." For hours he listened. The signal repeated, sometimes clear, sometimes broken. He imagined the person behind it, sitting in darkness, pressing the button with shaking hands. He imagined her eyes, filled with fear, staring into the void. Daniel had always felt like no one noticed him. He lived on a forgotten station, did a job no one cared about. His life was silence, just like hers. And in that moment, he felt a strange connection, as if 2 lonely souls had met across the stars. He knew what Command would say. They would laugh. They would call it a waste of time. They would remind him of the rules. But Daniel was tired of rules. He was tired of watching lives pass by while he sat in silence. So he made a choice. He whispered into the empty room, "I hear you. I hear you." He downloaded the coordinates, he packed his bag, and he walked to the small ship docked at the station. The ship was old, not made for rescue missions, but it could fly. He keyed in the destination, staring at the map. The dead planet was far, hidden in shadows but reachable. His hands trembled as he pressed the launch button. The engines roared. The station grew smaller behind him. He knew he was breaking the law. He knew if Command found out, his career would end. But he also knew something greater. Somewhere out there, someone was crying for help. And he was the only one who listened. As the ship moved into deep space, Daniel thought of his past. He thought of his father, a soldier who once said, "Never abandon those who call for help." He thought of the books he read as a boy, stories of heroes who stood against fear. He smiled weakly. Maybe this is my turn. The journey was long, the silence heavy. Only the voice kept him awake, repeating in his memory, "Help me." He replayed the signal again and again, as if the sound gave him strength, as if it was guiding him through the endless dark. But doubts grew inside him. What if it was a trap? What if it was a trick by pirates? What if it was a ghost signal, some echo from the past? He shook his head. No, that voice was real. No machine can sound like that. As he neared the dead planet, his ship shook slightly, passing through a field of rocks. The sensors showed a faint trace, a broken vessel hiding in the shadows. His heart raced, his breath quickened. He whispered, "I found you." He slowed the ship, circling carefully. He saw the broken alien craft, cracked and wounded, barely alive. He saw no lights, no movement, only silence. For a moment, he thought he was too late. Then, faintly, the signal beeped again. The same words, the same voice. "Help me." Daniel leaned forward, pressing his hand against the screen. "I hear you. I am here." Fear filled him, but so did determination. He knew the next step would change his life forever. He was about to meet something unknown, something alien. He was about to break the wall between 2 species. But Daniel did not care about the risk. All he cared about was the voice that no one else had heard. All he cared about was the promise he made to himself. Humanity does not abandon those who cry for help. The engines cooled, the ship steadied. Daniel took a deep breath. His eyes locked on the broken vessel. He whispered, "Hold on, I'm coming." Then he prepared to cross the line between silence and salvation. Daniel sat in his small ship, staring at the alien vessel drifting in the shadow of the dead planet, H. His hands gripped the controls tightly. His heart pounded like a drum. He had never seen anything like this before. The alien craft looked broken, twisted by fire, scarred by battle. Its metal skin was cracked, its engines torn apart. Pieces of it floated slowly in the dark like frozen tears. Daniel swallowed hard. The stories were true. Alien ships were beautiful, even in ruin. Their design was strange and elegant, sharp like crystal, glowing faintly even while dying. He knew what Command would say if they saw him here. "Return at once, Technician Daniel. Do not engage with alien vessels. Do not risk human security." The rules were written in every manual. Humans were not supposed to answer unknown distress calls. The risk was too high. Pirates sometimes faked signals, enemies sometimes set traps, curiosity killed the foolish, but Daniel looked at his console. The signal still played softly. Help me, please, help me. It was not a soldier's trick. It was not a trap. It was a soul crying out in the dark. His chest tightened. I can't turn away now, he whispered. Slowly, carefully, he brought his ship closer. His scanner beeped, showing life signs inside, weak but real. Daniel's breath caught. There was someone alive in there, someone waiting, someone who had been crying for 13 long days. He thought of the danger. What if the alien was violent? What if she attacked? What if her people came searching? He shook his head. He remembered the voice, soft, desperate, tired. No enemy sounded like that. He put on his suit. His hands trembled as he sealed the helmet. This is madness, he told himself. This is against every rule. And yet his feet kept moving, carrying him to the docking bay. He opened the hatch of his ship and connected it to the broken alien craft. The air hissed, the door creaked, darkness waited on the other side. Daniel stepped in, his flashlight cut through the shadows. The air smelled of smoke and burned metal. The corridors were bent, wires hung like vines, sparks flashed weakly. It looked like a graveyard, silent and cold. He moved slowly, his boots echoing. His light scanned every corner. His heart raced faster with each step. Hello? He whispered through the comm. I hear you. I've come to help. His voice sounded small in the emptiness. Then, in the control room, he saw her. The alien woman sat slumped against a console. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the light. Her eyes half closed, her breathing shallow. In her trembling hands was the broken transmitter, still active, still repeating the same call for help. Daniel froze. His chest tightened. She was real. She was alive. For a moment he just stared. This was history. This was something no human had ever done before. He was standing face to face with another species. The alien woman stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. She saw him. At first her gaze was sharp, filled with fear. Her lips parted as if to scream, but no sound came. Her body was too weak. Daniel raised his hands slowly, showing he meant no harm. His voice shook as he said, "It's okay. I'm here to help." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Only the weak hum of machines and Daniel's breathing could be heard. Then, the alien woman's eyes softened. She blinked, a tear falling down her cheek. Her lips moved, whispering a word he did not understand. But he felt the meaning, gratitude, relief. Daniel stepped closer. He opened his pack and pulled out a small water pouch. He placed it near her. She stared at it, confused at first, then reached out with trembling fingers. She drank slowly. Each sip brought a faint glow back to her skin. He smiled behind his helmet. "You're going to be okay," he whispered. The alien woman touched his arm weakly. Her hand was light, trembling. Her eyes locked with his. In that moment, no words were needed. Two beings from different worlds understood each other, but the peace was fragile. Alarms suddenly echoed through Daniel's ship. His wrist console flashed red. Incoming vessels detected. Multiple signatures, fast and strong. Daniel's blood ran cold. Someone had found them. Maybe her people, maybe enemies, maybe hunters. Whoever they were not here to rescue. The alien woman's eyes widened. Fear filled her again. She spoke quickly in her own language, her voice rising. Daniel did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. "They will kill us." He grabbed her hand, shaking his head. "I won't leave you, I promise." He lifted her carefully, supporting her weak frame. He guided her toward his ship. Every step was heavy. The alarms grew louder. The enemy was getting closer. Inside his chest, Daniel felt the weight of his choice. He had broken the rules. He had risked everything. Now he was about to face the cost. But when he looked at the alien woman, trembling yet alive, he knew he would not change a thing. He whispered as he helped her through the hatch. Humanity does not abandon those who cry for help. Behind them, the alien ship groaned and cracked. As Daniel sealed the hatch, as the engines of the enemy vessels roared closer, he realized this was no longer just a rescue. This was the beginning of a war. Daniel's ship shook as the hatch sealed behind them. He supported the alien woman, her weight light yet heavy with weakness. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under the dim lights, her breathing shallow, her eyes filled with fear. The alarm still echoed, red lights flashing across the console. Enemy vessels were drawing closer. Daniel's heart pounded, but he forced himself to focus. "You're safe now," he whispered, though he was not sure if the word "S" were true. He guided her gently to the small medbay. It was little more than a narrow bed with basic supplies, not designed for guests, certainly not for aliens. Yet it was the only place he could lay her down. She collapsed against the sheets, her fingers trembling as they clutched at his sleeve. Daniel knelt beside her. He removed his helmet. His face was pale, his eyes steady but filled with concern. "I'm here," he said softly. "You're not alone anymore." The alien woman looked at him, her gaze uncertain. She whispered something in her own tongue. The words were strange, musical yet broken. He could not understand, but he felt the weight of her voice, a plea, a question, maybe even doubt. Daniel nodded slowly, pressing a hand to his chest. "Daniel," he said, pointing to himself. Then he pointed gently toward her, waiting. Her lips moved. A faint sound escaped, a name fragile and almost lost. "Sarah." He repeated it carefully. "Sarah." The name felt heavy and beautiful. Her eyes softened, a flicker of trust forming between them. Still, fear clung to her like a shadow. Sarah's body trembled. Her hands shook as she tried to sit up. Her voice cracked as she whispered more words he could not understand. Her eyes darted toward the window, where the distant glimmer of enemy vessels approached. Daniel glanced at the radar. The dots were closing in. He clenched his fists. His mind screamed at him, "Turn back, escape, save yourself." But when he looked back at Sarah, pale and fragile on the bed, he knew there was no choice. "Listen," he said gently, though he knew she could not understand. "I will not leave you. I promise." His voice was firm, steady, stronger than his own fear. Sarah stared at him, her silver eyes shining with tears. She reached out with a weak hand. Her fingers brushed his. For a moment, two worlds touched, fragile yet real. The ship trembled again. Daniel rushed to the cockpit. His fingers flew over the controls. He sent false signals, tried to mask his location. The enemy ships were scanning, searching. He had to buy time. Behind him, Sarah's faint voice called out. He turned and saw her struggling to rise. She pointed toward the console, whispering words he did not know. Her body shook, yet her eyes burned with determination. She wanted to help. Daniel shook his head. "You need rest." But she insisted, her hand striking the console weakly. Daniel hesitated, then sighed. He slid the translator device from his pack. It was old and unreliable, but it might work. He activated it, placed it between them. Sarah spoke again, slowly, carefully. The machine buzzed, then cracked out a rough translation. "Danger. They will not stop. They come for me." Her voice through the translator was broken but clear. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Why?" he asked softly. The translator buzzed as he spoke. "Why are they after you?" Sarah's eyes filled with pain. She whispered again. The machine translated slowly. "Abandoned. I was marked unclean, unworthy, left to die." Her voice trembled. She turned her face away, shame written across her silver features. Daniel froze. His chest ached. He wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but he realized she was not speaking of herself alone. She was speaking of her people, her laws, her exile. She was left because of who she was. He walked back to her, kneeling by her side. "Listen," he said firmly, the translator buzzing to life. "I don't care what they think. You are alive, and that is enough. You called for help. I heard you, and I will not abandon you." Sarah's eyes widened. Her lips trembled. Tears streamed down her face. For the first time in 13 days, someone had answered. Someone had cared. But despair still weighed heavy. The radar beeped louder. The enemy ships were closing fast. Daniel's ship was small, fragile, not built for battle. Escape looked impossible. The shadow of death grew closer. Sarah gripped his hand, her voice stronger now. The translator buzzed. "Leave me. Save yourself." Daniel shook his head. His voice rose, firm and unbreakable. "No, humanity does not abandon those who cry for help. I will not leave you." Sarah stared at him, her eyes searching. Then slowly she nodded. For the first time, trust filled her gaze. Daniel tightened his grip on her hand. The enemy was coming. The ship trembled. The lights flickered. Death stood outside, waiting. But inside, in that small, fragile vessel, hope was born. Two beings from different worlds sat together, hand in hand, face to face with despair, and neither willing to let go. The radar screen glowed red, enemy vessels closing in like wolves circling prey. Daniel's heart pounded as he tightened his grip on the controls. His ship was small, fragile, never meant for combat, but he had no choice. They had found him, and they were coming fast. Behind him, Sarah sat weakly on the medbed. Her silver eyes followed the beeping lights on the console. She knew those ships. Her body trembled. Her voice cracked as she spoke through the translator. "They are my people. They will not save me. They will destroy us both." Daniel turned sharply, his eyes narrowing. "Your people? Why would they do that?" The machine translated his words. Sarah's lips trembled, her voice faint but filled with sorrow. "I was abandoned, cast aside. They call me unworthy. If they see me alive, they will erase me, erase you too, so no one knows." The words struck Daniel like cold steel. He clenched his fists. His mind screamed at him to run, but his chest burned with anger. "Humanity does not erase the helpless," he whispered. Under his breath, his jaw tightened. "Then they'll have to go through me." Outside, the enemy ships spread out, sleek and sharp, glowing with a cruel beauty. They moved like predators, their weapons armed, their engines bright. They were faster, stronger, deadlier. Daniel knew he could not face them head-on. He steered his ship into the shadow of the dead planet, weaving between drifting rocks and shattered debris. The engines roared, the hull rattled. Sarah clutched the bed, her eyes wide. "You cannot fight them, they are too many," the translator buzzed. Daniel glanced back, his voice steady. "Then we won't fight them, not yet. We'll outsmart them." The enemy ships fired warning shots, beams of light cutting through the dark. Rocks exploded, fire and dust filled the black void. Daniel twisted the controls, his ship spun between the blasts, barely escaping. His breath came fast, but his hands were steady. He remembered the training his father once gave him. In battle, you don't need to be stronger, you need to be smarter. Use the shadows, use the silence, use their arrogance against them. So Daniel flew deeper into the asteroid field. Each rock became a shield, each shadow a hiding place. The enemy ships followed, their glowing hulls brighter against the black stone. Sarah watched with trembling hands, her heart torn. She had never seen anyone risk so much for her. The radar beeped again, another wave of ships entering the field. They were surrounding him. Daniel's teeth clenched. He whispered, think, there has to be a way." His eyes scanned the field, then lit up. Ahead was a cluster of giant asteroids, slowly colliding. Their movements were heavy, like giants locked in a slow dance. Between them was a narrow path, dangerous but possible. Daniel smiled faintly. Perfect. He dove toward the gap. His ship scraped past the stone walls. Sparks flying. The enemy ships hesitated, their pilots unsure, but arrogance drove them forward. They followed, believing the human was desperate, trapped. Inside the gap, Daniel cut his engines for a moment, letting the gravity of the colliding rocks pull him deeper. The ship drifted silently, hidden in the shadow. The enemy roared past, their scanners missing him, chasing a ghost. Daniel reignited the engines and slipped into another dark corner. He grinned, sweat dripping from his brow. "You'll have to do better than that." Sarah stared at him in shock, her voice shaking. Why risk this? You could have left me, saved yourself." The translator buzzed her words softly. Daniel turned, his face fierce yet kind. "Because you called, because no one else listened, because no one deserves to be abandoned in the dark." Her lips trembled, tears filled her eyes. She whispered through the translator, "You are different, not like them." Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I think it's what humanity should be." But the danger was not over. The radar beeped louder. The enemy had regrouped. They were scanning the rocks. They would find him soon. Sarah looked at him with fear. "They will not stop. They will never stop." Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked out at the endless dark, his voice low and steady. "Then neither will I." He turned back to the controls, plotting a new course. If he could not outgun them, he would have to outthink them. He sent a burst of false signals into the rocks, mimicking his ship's engine signature. The enemy ships turned, chasing the Phantom, blasting the wrong targets. The asteroids shook. Collisions echoed like thunder in space. Debris scattered, slamming into the enemy vessels. One ship cracked under the force, flames bursting across its surface. Sarah gasped, watching the hunters fall into their own trap. Daniel's ship slipped away, sliding under the cover of fire and stone. For a moment, the radar cleared. The enemy was lost, confused, but Daniel knew it would not last. They would regroup. They would chase again. He leaned back, breathing hard, his body trembling, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. "We bought some time," he whispered. Sarah stared at him, her silver eyes wide, her lips moved slowly. The translator buzzed. "You are my hope." Daniel met her gaze, his chest heavy but proud. "And you are not alone anymore," he said. The ship drifted forward into the darkness, enemy shadows still searching behind them. The battle was not over, the war had just begun. But in that fragile vessel, two lives burned brighter than the fear outside. Together they faced the shadows. Together they defied despair. The silence did not last. The radar blinked red again, more enemy ships closing in, stronger and faster than before. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow, his hands tight on the controls. Sarah sat behind him, her eyes wide, her silver skin pale. She knew what was coming. "They will not stop," she whispered through the translator. Her voice shook with fear. "They will hunt us until we are gone." Daniel stared at the blinking dots, his jaw clenched. "Then this ends here," he said quietly. His heart thundered. He had no fleet, no weapon strong enough, just a small, fragile ship and his mind. But sometimes courage was stronger than steel. The enemy vessels spread out, forming a net. They wanted to trap him, to crush him slowly. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "All right," he muttered. "Let's play." He powered the engines and dove toward the asteroid belt, weaving between the massive rocks. The enemy followed, beams of energy cutting through the void, explosions flashing like thunder. The ship rattled, metal groaning, sparks flying from the console. Sarah gripped the side rail, her voice rising. "You cannot win. You must escape." The translator buzzed her words. Daniel shook his head, his voice steady. "There is no escape unless we fight. Unless we stand." The enemies closed in, shadows circling. Daniel's eyes darted across the radar. He needed an edge, something, anything. Then he saw it. Ahead lay a cluster of unstable asteroids, their cores glowing faintly with hidden energy. If struck, they would erupt like bombs. Daniel grinned. Perfect. He pushed the ship forward, dodging enemy fire, leading the hunters straight into the glowing field. Sarah's eyes widened. "This place is death." Daniel smirked faintly. "Exactly." The first enemy ship fired, its blast missing Daniel but striking one of the unstable rocks. The asteroid exploded in a burst of fire and dust. The shockwave ripped through the void, smashing into two nearby hunters. Their ships cracked, spinning into the darkness. Daniel's ship shook violently, alarms blaring, but he held steady, weaving through the chaos. More blasts followed, each one lighting up the field. Asteroids shattered, flames spreading. The enemy formation broke, confusion spreading among them. Sarah gasped, watching the destruction. Her trembling hand reached for Daniel's shoulder. "You are turning their power against them." Daniel nodded, his teeth clenched. "Let them chase. They will destroy themselves." But the enemy was not foolish. The survivors pulled back, regrouping outside the field, waiting. Their leader's vessel glowed brighter, larger, stronger. It did not charge recklessly. It was patient, dangerous. Daniel knew they were learning. His tricks would not last forever. He checked the fuel, running low, checked the weapons, nearly empty. This was it. One final move, one last chance. He turned to Sarah, her eyes locked on his. "I cannot ask you to stay," he said softly. "This may be the end." The translator buzzed. Sarah shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "You gave me hope when all was lost. I will not leave you now." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He reached out, their hands meeting, fragile yet strong. "Then we face this together," he whispered. The enemy leader's ship advanced, weapons charged. Daniel steadied his breath. He remembered Harry, his father's words. "In the darkest moment, courage is the light." He powered his engines, rushing forward, straight at the massive vessel. Sarah gasped. "What are you doing?" Daniel's eyes burned with fire. "Ending this." The enemy leader fired. Beams of energy tore across the void. Daniel twisted the ship, weaving between blasts. His vessel groaned, panels tearing, alarms screaming. Still, he pushed on. At the last moment, Daniel released a cluster of signal beacons. Each one sent out his ship's signature, dozens of false echoes filling the radar. The enemy fired wildly, blasts striking the false targets. Asteroids erupted, flames spreading like wildfire. Daniel dove under the chaos, slipping beneath the leader's vessel. He aimed his last remaining missile at the unstable rocks below. His voice steady. "This is for every soul they abandoned." He fired. The missile struck. The ground beneath the leader's ship erupted. A chain of explosions roared. Fire and stone ripped upward, smashing into the massive vessel, tearing it apart. The enemy leader's ship cracked in half, flames swallowing it whole. The shockwave slammed into Daniel's ship, tossing it through space. The hull screamed, lights flickered. Daniel gritted his teeth, holding the controls. "Hold together, just hold," he whispered. The ship tumbled, then steadied, barely alive. The radar cleared, enemy signals vanished. Only drifting wreckage remained. Silence returned. Daniel slumped back, exhausted, his body trembling, his chest heaving. Sarah stared at him, tears glistening. Her voice cracked through the translator. "You faced death for me. Why?" Daniel looked at her, his eyes soft but firm. "Because no one deserves to be abandoned. Not you, not anyone." She reached out, her hand trembling, resting on his. "You are more than human. You are hope." Daniel smiled weakly, shaking his head. "No, I am only human, and that is enough." The ship floated quietly, battered and scarred, but alive. Daniel and Sarah sat together, hand in hand, two souls who refused to surrender. Two voices who defied silence. The last stand was over, but the journey was not. The galaxy would soon learn what had begun here. In the shadows of a dead planet, hope had been reborn. The battlefield was silent. Wreckage floated through the void like broken bones of giants. Flames flickered among shattered ships, then slowly dimmed. The storm was over. Daniel's vessel drifted weakly, its hull cracked, its engines coughing, but it was still alive, and so were they. Daniel sat slumped in the pilot's seat, his hands trembling from exhaustion. His chest rose and fell heavily. He had no strength left, but his eyes stayed sharp, scanning the stars. His heart refused to relax, always expecting another enemy to appear. Behind him, Sarah stirred. Her silver skin glowed faintly again, stronger than before. She had rested while Daniel fought, but she had seen everything. Her tears had not stopped. Tears for her own people who abandoned her. Tears for the stranger who saved her. She whispered softly through the translator, "You are not like them. You are not like anyone I have ever known." Daniel turned slightly, meeting her eyes. His lips curled into a faint, tired smile. "I am only human," he said quietly, "but maybe that is enough." For the first time, Sarah allowed herself to breathe without fear. Her hands no longer shook. Her heart no longer drowned in despair. She had been abandoned for 13 days, forgotten by her kind, left to die in silence. Yet now she was alive, because one human had listened, because one human had cared. The ship drifted away from the dead planet, away from the burning field of wreckage. Each passing moment carried them further from death, closer to life. Sarah sat beside Daniel in the cockpit, staring at the stars. They no longer looked cold, no longer looked endless. For the first time, the stars looked alive. Daniel adjusted the broken controls, guiding the ship towards safer space. His voice steady but quiet. "We cannot stay here. Others will come. They will search. They will ask questions, but I will not let them take you." Sarah's lips parted, her voice trembling as the translator spoke. "You would fight your own people for me." Daniel looked at her, his eyes unwavering. "If they try to erase you, then yes, humanity stands for more than survival. It stands for compassion, for hope. If my people forget that, then I will remind them." Sarah's eyes shone. She reached out slowly, her fingers brushing his hand. It was a simple touch, but it carried the weight of two worlds meeting. Her voice cracked with emotion. "Then maybe humanity is stronger than we believed." For a long while they sat in silence, watching the endless sky. The danger was behind them, but the future was uncertain. Sarah thought of her people, their cold laws, their cruel decisions. She thought of the way they marked her as unworthy. She wondered if she would ever see her world again. But when she looked at Daniel, she realized it no longer mattered. She had found something greater than home. She had found someone who would never abandon her. The ship's engines sputtered, warning lights flickered. Daniel sighed. "We won the battle, but the ship won't last much longer. We need a safe place, somewhere far from their eyes." Sarah nodded, her voice faint but firm. "Together, we will find it." Daniel glanced at her, surprised by the strength in her tone. The translator buzzed, but her eyes spoke more clearly than words. She was no longer the broken woman crying in the dark. She was something else now, reborn with hope. Hours passed, the stars shifted, the ship limped onward. Every sound of the engines reminded Daniel how fragile they were, yet every heartbeat reminded him why he had chosen this path. He thought of the signal he had first heard, a whisper lost in static. If he had ignored it, she would be gone. But he had listened, and that had changed everything. Finally, Sarah broke the silence, her voice low but steady. "Daniel, why did you listen? So many others heard me and ignored. Why you?" Daniel thought for a long moment, his eyes on the stars. "Because I know what it feels like to be unheard," he said softly. "All my life I felt invisible, forgotten. But when I heard your voice, I understood, and I could not let you vanish into silence, not while I could answer." Sarah's eyes filled again, not with sorrow this time, but with warmth. She reached over, her hand resting firmly on his. "Then I am glad it was you. I am glad it was humanity who found me." The translator buzzed, but Daniel did not need it. He understood. His chest grew heavy with emotion. He squeezed her hand gently. "And I am glad I heard you." As the ship drifted on, the stars stretched before them, vast and endless, but no longer empty. Sarah looked at them with new eyes, Daniel too. For both of them, the galaxy had changed. It was no longer only a place of shadows and despair. It was a place where hope could rise, even in the dark. St. Corner, the wreckage behind them would be discovered one day. The story would spread. Humanity would learn what Daniel had done. Aliens would whisper of the one who defied despair. But for now, it was only the two of them, survivors bound by something stronger than fear. Daniel leaned back, closing his eyes briefly, his voice soft but certain. "We are not finished. This is only the beginning." Sarah looked at him, her silver eyes bright with belief. "Yes," she whispered, "hope has just been born." The ship moved forward, battered but alive, carrying with it two voices that once cried alone, now joined as one. And somewhere deep in the endless dark, the universe listened.